Hello, my name is METİN ARIDAŞIR. This is 42nd part of explanation of my theory. Single wave pulse versus photon. Two main light types and their interactions in my theory. Some of my concepts, abbreviations here, I hope you see. According to my theory and my formulas. 1. Proton-bounded electron motion form that has a certain initial imbalance wavelength, radius, lambda EI. After enlarged by a free electron motion forms successive wave at the rate of this wave's wave number squared as much as n squared multiplied by lambda EI. When successive wave vanish or when another successive wave that has lower wave number affect this proton-bounded electron motion form, therefore when it shrinks it produces and pushes one single wave pulse at a certain representative wavelength through the eternity at the speed of light. Remember from my former videos. 2. Forming conditions of these two types of light are different, but my same formulas and my theory are valid for them. 3. Single wave pulse and free electron motion form successive waves interact also. If there were no effects of free electron motion from successive waves, proton-bounded electron motion forms wouldn't produce and push single wave pulses. Say, atoms wouldn't produce and push single wave pulses through proton-bounded electron motion forms. Our subjective reality occurs only through interaction between free electron motion form successive waves and proton-bounded electron motion forms joint motion axis. If there were no free electron motion forms and their effective successive waves, there wouldn't be heat, color, life, spectral lines, rainbow, etc. in the universe, and the universe would freeze and there wouldn't be two realities. One of, remember, according to my theory and my formulas, matter, sensation, perception, matter, universe, another one, subjective reality, that for all living species. 5. Single wave pulse and free electron motion forms successive waves interact also. I will explain this interaction in detail, but not now. My theory and my formulas explain the Compton experiments results wholly. These results are some proof of my theory and my formulas. Accepted explanations of the Compton experiment are invalid. Wrong. I will tell you next. and I will explain why the Compton experiment by using XFEL lasers, photons, fails as I predicted. Again, I will tell you next, and I will explain why the Compton experiment by using XFEL lasers, photons, fails as I predicted. Whereas laser light, they say photon, and it is electromagnetic wave. But in that case, X-ray production from XFEL used Compton experiments failed. There is no Compton results, Compton experiment results. Deviated, they say inverse Compton effect, inverse Compton scattering, etc. No. Wrong. 6. X-rays continuous spectrum or black body spectrum represent relocating free electron motion forms successive waves, and characteristic lines, emission or absorption lines, that occur as an excess intensity spike on the same wavelength point of the continuous spectrum represent single wave pulse. At this occurring time is intersection time or single wave pulse, and a certain wavelength part of relocating free electron motion forms successive waves. Remember my relocating electron motion form and its graph. Intensity, wavelength, here. Okay. This is continuous spectrum. Say this is 0.035 nanometer. Okay. If 0.035 nanometer representative wavelength is 0.035 nanometer single wave pulse, coincide this free electron motion forms. This is, say, this place, say 0.035 nanometer. I don't want to confuse your mind, but when they coincide here, I'm so sorry, here. Okay. Intertwined. Just here coincide. This wavelength, not whole. Okay. Then there's here a spike, intensity, excess intensity spike occurs according to my theory and my formulas. Like this. This is free electron motion forms, relocating free electron motion forms, continuous spectrum. Here, that point, say 0.035 nanometer. This is single wave pulse wavelength from proton-bounded, a proton-bounded electron. Then when they coincide, and when they intersect, this is this plane. Okay. This is characteristic X-ray. This is continuous X-ray spectrum. Characteristic X-rays, according to my theory, single wave pulses from proton-bounded electron motion forms. Continuous spectrums, according to my theory, from relocating free electron motion forms, successive waves. Okay, remember. Six X-rays continuous spectrum or blackbody spectrum represent relocating free electron motion forms, successive waves and characteristic lines, emission or absorption lines that occur as an excess intensity spike on the same wavelength point of the continuous spectrum are represent single wave pulse. At this occurring time is intersection time of single wave pulse and certain wavelength, and a certain wavelength part of relocating free electron motion forms successive waves. 7. Proton-bounded electron motion forms initial, in balance, undisturbed wavelength lambda EI in an atom represents in balance initial and undisturbed joint motion form at n equal to 1 at first cycle for all joint motion forms as an atom also. If an outer free electron motion form successive wave effect comes in this axis of joint motion, through making enlarged the proton-bounded electron motion form sphere has pulled away from the proton that at the center of it, without breaking the joint motion axis between them, but the motion form cycle is still n equal to 1, as joint motion cycle with proton that constituted more small wavelength electron-like motion forms. When free electron motion forms successive wave and its effect vanish, proton-bounded electron motion form shrinks to its natural, in balance, undisturbed situation at its initial wavelength lambda EI. This balance is built together by proton and proton-bounded electron motion form, and this balance has coercive power that makes proton-bounded electron motion form shrink to its initial wavelength. Have a good evening. See you later.